pull out your red shoes, your red suit, your red dress, something, because this Sunday is Pentecost Sunday. Pentecost is coming. Reverend
Yeah.
Thorne, how are you just walking, running, moving towards this upcoming Sunday? The Narrative Lectionary gives us two different texts to hold. There's the traditional Acts chapter 2 text, which is the story of Pentecost in the book of Acts. And then we're continuing one more time in Romans chapter 8, verses 14 to 39, which is probably most people's favorite part of Romans.
Oh my
So there's
gosh.
some.
Yeah.
What are you holding? What are you cooking up for us this coming Sunday?
Well, Romans is a great book. Romans chapter 8 is a great chapter. Many of the verses that probably many of us love or have memorized, again, thinking about our Professor Tim Brown, likely come out of Romans 8. We are more than conquerors. I mean, you guys know, you'll read
Your
it.
height nor
Um,
depth.
Neither height nor depth. I mean, the drama is great, the movement is great, the visual imagery is beautiful. It's very hopeful. But I'm laying that alongside like what's going on, at least in New York City, and I would, suggest in the world right now. The war in Ukraine is still raging. We've got increased unhoused folk and people struggling with mental health illnesses on the subways here in New York. So you read this text and you go, really? I get the groaning of creation part. I'm seeing that all around. We're seeing that with the earth and climate disasters all over the place. Um, and so I think it can raise some questions about is Romans 8 and is what he's proffering pie in the sky? Um, does it make the comfortable more comfortable and make us dismiss the folk who actually are groaning? So, that's one side of things. And then I landed, was really grabbed by, I think it's verse 19, when it says, the creation is waiting in eager expectation for us, for
Hmm.
the children of God. And I always read this more as what the Spirit is doing, and I think that's certainly in there. But I'm reading it a little differently now, just in light of what's happening in the world. That the creation's waiting on us, and I think there's something juicy in there, because it suggests that we've got some things to do, and
Oh
certainly the
yeah.
Spirit is doing a lot, but they're waiting on us as well.
It's Alice Walker all over the place. We are the
Mm,
ones we've been waiting for.
mhm,
I've
mhm.
I've I've believed for a long time that God has hands. They're attached to your wrists. So
Yeah,
God does something in the world when we do something in the world. Thoughts and prayers aren't really going to end any of the problems we see proliferating, but action, doing
yeah,
something,
yeah.
there's a whole lot of groaning waiting for the children of God. Whew.
There's a lot of groaning, and there's a lot that we can do. So, this week we're actually going out to protest for the close of Rikers. We'll be out next week protesting the budget that our city has received that would suggest that nobody's thinking about the children of God, particularly the vulnerable ones. So, there is a lot that we can do. But I'm also thinking a lot, and part of the reason I love this chapter is the movement of the Spirit. So, I read somewhere that. The pneuma, the spirit, is mentioned over 30 times in the book of Romans. 20 of those times are in chapter 8. So this is the
Whoa.
perfect chapter for the celebration of Pentecost. And this notion that the spirit is on the move, I do think that is what's helpful as we lay this chapter with its groaning alongside all of what's happening in our church, in our political systems, in our world with the planet. The spirit is moving, and what I love about the spirit is very unpredictable. We never know what she's going to do. So if there's any hope for me in this text, it's those 20 mentions of the pneuma, wind moving and blowing and stirring things up, and hopefully prayerfully stirring up some hearts, stirring up some politicians. Things are getting really spicy across our country. I
Hmm.
saw a video of a representative grabbing a citizen who asked a question he didn't like grabbed him and just like kind of walked him down the sidewalk. So I'm like, come on, Holy Spirit, come through. We really need you. We really need you right now.
And that connection of this Romans section and the Acts passage with Pentecost is perfect. I mean,
Mm,
this is almost like Paul's reflection on that event. I mean, Paul was around. He wasn't the Paul we know of Romans. He was on a different side of the conversation at that point. But still, it
Hmm.
makes me wonder what would Paul's reflection on the kind of Pentecost origin story of this thing called the church have been. I think a lot of what we're seeing him write in Romans is exactly that commentary. The Spirit is groaning, waiting for the children of God. A group of people huddled, scared in the room, and then the wind blows through, and they could just keep praying, or they could get themselves out in the streets and open themselves up to what God is calling them to do.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better. I think it is that opening ourselves up that is the spirit of Pentecost. We don't really know what the Spirit's going to do, and that can be very disruptive and concerning and uncomfortable. But to me, that is the definition of the Spirit. We don't know where she's going to take us. And there is a way in which Paul's writing, and largely, I think just because it's written down, we think that is the prescription. So it suggests that Paul knows or that any of us know, um, but we don't. We know that we will not be separated. We have no idea what that is going to look like. We know that we are more than conquerors, but we don't really know what that looks like either. So we take his attempts to describe what this means for us, and hold it lightly, hold it like the wind is blowing it, because generally my experience with the Spirit is it's not going to turn out the way you might imagine.
Oh yeah, I'm just thinking, who are the people in our world today who are the professionals in analyzing wind?
Mm,
Meteorologists have a lot of good ideas on what the weather's going to do, but sometimes she still surprises you, and it turns to
right,
be like, oh, the wind moved, and we didn't expect that. The
right.
Holy Spirit's the same way. We might have a sense on where we think things are blowing, but you got to keep your sail open and be ready for where she's going to send you.
Yeah, be ready and be open, like you said. I think what we do know for sure is that we won't be left alone, that God is with us. But
Yeah.
what's going to happen from here to here? Who knows? So I think cultivating some joy in surprises and cultivating some openness to being tossed around a bit. There's that joke about not being promised a smooth flight, but being promised a safe landing is maybe appropriate for Pentecost.
I like it. Okay, so there's a lot going on in the text. We're going to see where that leads in your sermon, others who are developing sermons with this as well. Wonderful. But one more thing at Riverside, it's
Yeah,
very common at Riverside in our tradition on Pentecost. We invite people to wear red,
yeah.
which is fantastic to see the sea of red in people worshiping in the room or in virtual coffee or online. But this year, we're also inviting another element for people to bring. Can you say a bit more about this second invitation we have for our congregation?
Absolutely. So we were really struck by the notion that people are speaking in these different languages, and being able to understand one another in their own language. That variety of languages suggests a variety of ethnic backgrounds. And so we thought it could be wonderful and celebratory in our multiracial, multi-ethnic, multicultural church to invite people to dress in whatever way represents their understanding of their cultural ethnic background. Um, I think for some people this will be an easier lift than others. I might say for my Anglo siblings, there may not be it may not be as easy. You may not have a Swedish whatever the traditional dress is, and of course that this country has a really powerful way, I think, of stripping away cultural identity from Anglo siblings. But it's an opportunity, I think, for all of us, regardless of our country of origin, to think a little bit more deeply about what are we in addition to being American, or what does it look like for us to come as what we think American is, because that also is a cultural heritage. And to see how that plays out in different families, I think is going to be a lot of fun and very interesting. Ultimately, we would love to have a potluck, but don't know that we can pull that off. People are still nervous about COVID. But to be able to sit down with our siblings also and break bread and eat dishes from different places, we're hoping
Mm.
we can do something like that next Pentecost. But this year we're going to just wear our outfits and our regalia.
It's going to be beautiful. And I've been
Yes.
thinking about this because I'm one of those Anglo folk. So I'm like, what is mine? and I got some German on my mom's side and English on my dad's
Mm.
side. So I was thinking, is this how heretical is this? Could I just have a stein of German beer with me for my German heritage and just sip on that during church? Is that allowed?
I think that works. I think however you name yourself, I mean, I think, the way that we talk about identity in terms of gender and sexuality, we let people play that out and play with it in a way that gives them life. I think in the same way we're inviting people to play around with their cultural heritage as well. We want to have a little fun. Pentecost is a celebration. It's a
Yep.
celebration of all of God's beauty and great diversity. So we want to just try to represent that in how we show up on Sunday
It's
morning.
a birthday party. It's when this
It
whole
really
experiment
is.
of the church got started.
Yes,
So, we got to mark
yes.
it with some sort of joy and celebration and all the diversity that it requires. It's going to be
And
great.
cake. We
And
probably should
cake.
try to have some cake. I have not asked anyone about cake. Might be too late. But yeah, birthday party. We should have some balloons or streamers or something.
Oh, well, there's a lot coming up. Pentecost is one of those good ones, and this is one of those great days when, all the roads align of the Revised Common Lectionary, the Narrative Lectionary. I don't think the RCL is in Romans, but everyone's going to be, a
Yeah.
lot of us are going to be leaning into Pentecost. So there's all sorts of
Mm.
excuses to tap into Romans 8, even if you're not on the Narrative Lectionary. And, you can lean over into the RCL, Revised Common Lectionary resources for all the Pentecost commentaries. So it's beautiful to see that coming up. And there's more to come. But looking further, we're moving into Isaiah next. Are you
Yeah,
ready for
yeah.
that? Oh,
Yeah, so our sweep of the narrative lectionary comes to a close with Pentecost, and then we'll be doing some Bible, what do we call them, series. So we'll be in the book of Isaiah for the month of June, I guess. It's going to be
yeah,
good
it's gonna be
stuff.
great. It's gonna be great. Okay, all this, you know the drill. Questions, comments, ideas. What are you thinking? What are you dreaming? What are you scheming? How are you celebrating Pentecost in your corner of your faith community? Share below.
Mhm.
We'd love to continue to bring all the diversity even to this conversation from all of you who are participating. And then we'll be back and we'll keep this conversation going next week as well. It's gonna be great.
It's going to be great.